Hello guys, and welcome back to the 5th episode of the podcast. Again, can't believe we've made it this far, but technically these are the easiest videos to edit, so it sort of makes sense that I'm still on track with it. Anyway, so the last podcast episode was really just... My dogs are barking. The last podcast episode was really just me, rambling on about stories. I hope it was somewhat interesting to watch. I don't really know if it was, but this whole thing is just for fun, so I get to post what I want, and I don't care if I was just rambling about myself and stories from my life. I think that's fun to talk about. Anyway, I'm actually filming this podcast episode early because I'm leaving to fly to Sweden to go visit family this weekend. So I'm not gonna film the podcast while I'm there, so I thought I would film a little earlier, to make sure I actually upload something. And honestly, I'm really close to being done with, a main vlog video, so I'm hoping I will kind of be able to get that out soon here, but it's just editing takes so much longer than I think it does. Every single time I make a video, I'm like, oh, editing this, this one won't take super long because I didn't actually film that many clips and I can cut out a lot of stuff, but you don't realize how much you have to cut out of saying or saying or the pauses in between conversation, because you watch a YouTube video and you see it's such a difference between the podcast and main channel type videos where it's very especially nowadays. Old YouTube was less like this, but nowadays it's very one word cut to the next word. There's no room for kind of that natural pause in speaking or that natural kind of time to think about what you're gonna say. And I feel for one, it's teaching me to say less. I don't know, I feel I kind of say it a lot in the podcast anyway, but when I'm filming, I really actually have to think about what I'm saying, so it's easier for me to edit. But anyway, that's why editing takes so long, is because you don't realize how much you have to cut here and how much you have to cut there and how much you have to edit to make it interesting to watch, in a sense. My father is upstairs and I'm wondering if I should just close my door a little bit, because I'm low-key talking really loud. But that's why it takes so long to edit things, is just because there's so much, if you actually want to make something that people are gonna watch and be engaged in, you have to do color correcting and editing clip lengths and having different well, now I'm just saying again because I'm trying to think. What was I gonna say? And hello? I heard you out there. What? I was wondering why you were just sneaking around.
Podcast.
Yeah. Hello, Father. I heard you go quiet, and I was like, what's going on?
Sneaking into the podcast.
I see.
Did you check your luggage?
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, I checked all the zippers and stuff. And I set the locks. Okay. So my father just joined the podcast for a little bit. But when you're editing, you just have to add so much extra stuff other than what you're saying, because you don't realize how heavily edited things are now. So I just think that's interesting, and especially the more I do this, the more I make videos, the more I edit videos, the more I realize there's a lot more than just filming the video. There's a lot more than just you have to script it, you have to plan when you're gonna film this versus filming that, and you have to be, and obviously this is what's hard for me, is you have to be so consistent because, like, I'm pretty sure consistency is, like, the number one reason why people don't, like, make it as content creators or whatever. Sorry, there's something on my shoulder. But, so I find that interesting, and obviously, again, I just do this for fun. I think it's fun to speak on things, and, you know, friends and family like to watch it, so I think that's cool. But I think that is something that you have to think about when you're kind of doing this, starting out, because obviously you don't earn any money, so it's so much harder to stay consistent and to stay, like, willing to, do all of that extra stuff. Anyway, that was kind of the intro. That actually was not planning to talk about that, but brought that in as kind of a, just thought that was something interesting to speak about, especially pertaining, like, why I haven't uploaded, also working on art, so, yeah. But, to the main topics of this video is, I kind of wanted to talk about, at least to start, like, feeling like you can't claim, like, what you work as because it's, like, self-run, or it's a small business, or, like, it's freelance, you know, like, you're not working for, like, a corporation or something. And I talked about it at the end of the last podcast episode, but I think I said then I was just kind of rambling, so I wanted to maybe structure that conversation a little bit and talk about it more here. And I think what I really just wanted to say about that is, I think it's so hard to feel like your talent or your work or whatever is good enough to be sold, to be watched, to be bought, looked at in a public space, whatever. Because obviously, like, I do art. I'm not bad at it or anything. Like, it looks good. People want my art and buy it, but it's still so hard to say, like, oh yeah, I work as an artist, or to put myself out there and be like, do you want to buy something that I make? Because that feels, like, really crazy to say. Like, that feels very strange to be like, oh yeah, like, I made something that's good enough for somebody to pay money for it. And I think that's really cool that people are able to do that. And, you know, I could touch all about, like, you know, how AI is coming into art now and how people are using generative AI, instead of, like, buying from real artists. And also, like, portraits of, like, people haven't been in for, like, a million bajillion years, but people like pet portraits. I personally do horses. I also do people, animals, anything like that. However, it's a very niche kind of subject, so that also makes it kind of an interesting space to be in. So, I don't know. I just find it interesting. I think talking about AI on it, I could definitely do, like, an entire podcast episode on that, so maybe I will do that. Let me know if that is something you would be interested in. But I just think, like, it's such a common thing to feel like you can't claim what you're doing because you're not, like, famous enough for it, or you're not making enough money for it, or it just feels weird anyway. Like, I know a lot of people, and I actually talked to somebody recently who, you know, somebody called her, like, an influencer, and she was like, it's so hard for me to claim that. And, like, this is, like, her job. Like, this is what she works as. But she just, like, I think it's so hard to claim, like, a non-traditional job sort of situation. Which is also why it's so hard to be like, oh yeah, I am an artist. I work, you know, doing commissions and doing prints and stuff like that. Because it's just not, like, doctor, lawyer, dentist pathway, which I feel like is a very common, you know, like, everybody thinks you have kind of, like, those three options and that's sort of it, and, like, that's what you're gonna do with your life. But there are so many jobs where, like, it's, like, non-traditional technically, and I think that's very cool, but also very hard to claim, especially in the society where people are very, like, big on, like, oh, you need to have a proper corporate job, like, you need to work a 9 to 5, like, you know, you need to, like, be, like, hustle culture, all of that sort of stuff is, like, you need to be on top of it, you need to be earning the most amount of money you can, you need to be working 24/7, and it's not that, like, you know, people that are doing small businesses don't work 24/7, they do, like, you know, you're having to run all aspects of your business, which is obviously very, very time consuming. But people see it through a different lens. Because you're working for yourself, I think people see it as like, oh, you're not actually doing that much work because you're not working for a big corporation that has set hours for you. You work from home, so that makes it easier. Like, you know, you get to pick your hours, that makes it easier. When in reality, it's like, you're still working 24/7. Like, you're putting the time into it, you're taking that time, and I think people should feel, like, I've heard so many people that just kind of lie about what they do so that they don't have to say, like, oh yeah, like, I work for myself, and I think we should be more accepting to people that, like, work in more non-traditional jobs and stuff like that. Because I think I was very conditioned to think, like, you could only go this pathway, and that's only what was open to you if you wanted to make money, when that's not true at all. So, yeah, I mean, I think people just need to not think of it as such, like it's an easy job if you're working for yourself, or, like, if you're owning a small business. Like, that's not really true, and I think we should all feel more comfortable to claim our small businesses or whatever we work as, or even if it's just like a side job, like feeling like you can say, like, oh yeah, I work as a psychologist and an artist or something like that. But yeah, that's kind of my point on that. I hope that made some sort of sense. But yeah, I hope that made some sort of sense of, like, why I feel like it's kind of hard to claim that side of myself. You know, mostly I just say, like, oh, I'm in college, blah, 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 blah. But, like, I do these extra things on the side. And I think a lot of people would benefit if we all felt more comfortable saying all of the things we work as, even if we don't really feel comfortable in it in ourselves. Because I feel like it's almost like manifesting. Like, the more you say, like, oh yeah, I work as an artist, or I work as an influencer, or I work as or, like, I work as a small business owner, like, I do pottery, like, blah, 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 or I am an author. I think the more you say it, the more you believe it, and the more you put into that role, and the more you feel confident, like, spending the time on that role, because, you know, the more you actually say that you're doing those things, like, I think there's, like, there's, like, some psychological, like, truth to that, and I can't remember if there's, like, a study, or I don't know what it is, or TikTok, it's some law of attraction, law of butt cheeks, whatever they keep talking about, but I think that's definitely true. The more you are confident in saying that you're doing it, the more time you'll spend actually trying to do that thing. So, yeah, I feel like that's kind of that on that section. We're back to structuring the podcast. No more rambling for 40 minutes. We're back. Anyway, next segment, talking about being a college student. Going into my sophomore year of college this coming fall. And I just wanted to talk about getting ready to start school again, getting ready to go back to college, just because, like, I don't know, it's so weird, like, I feel, you know, you're not there for very long, but you're also there for a long ass time. I do, for my college, obviously Lewis and Clark, we do 2 16-week semesters, so in total, that's, like, 32 weeks, that we're actually there and actively doing schoolwork. And that is most of the year, but when you dumb it down and say, oh yeah, I'm doing a 16-week semester, in reality, it ends up being super short, and it feels very short. And I think that's something I'm a little scared for this semester, and maybe some advice I would give if you're going into college, or starting any year in college is, like, take your time. Do the fun stuff you want to do, study when you need to study, because, like, midterms come up so fast and finals come up super, super quick. So I think, like, getting ready to start school again for me is kind of preparing, like, how am I going to structure my day so it's not just, like, school sleep sort of situation, and, like, how am I going to, or it ends up being, like, I think you hang out with people so much more when you're in college, which is super great, and I really, really love that aspect of it, is I get to see my friends every single day, and I get to have, I get to have meals with them, like lunch, dinner, breakfast, whatever. I get to see them in my classes, I get to see them across campus, and we're like a 2-minute walk away from each other, and I think that's absolutely amazing, but I think it's also really hard because you start losing your work-life balance, because you end up doing 1 week where it's only schoolwork, and then the next week you're only hanging out with people. And I think for me, getting ready to start again is kind of thinking about how I'm going to balance that out so I don't overload myself on certain weeks, and so I'm taking, like, proper breaks to be by myself. Because as much as I love everyone, and we have all talked about this, is we also like sitting in our dorms alone and doing our own thing. And that's totally fine. And I think that's something that's hard to remember when you're there, because you're either really stressed out about what you need to be doing, or, like, really excited to go hang out with your friends. But, like, I also want to have the balance to ride my horse as many days as I can, like, be committed to becoming a better athlete, be committed to becoming a better runner, like long distance runner, be committed to working out, being committed to my art business and doing this on the side for fun. I think that is so important and so difficult to do. So I think my biggest piece of advice for, like, going back to college, like I said, is kind of remembering that balance, but also not being mad at yourself if you fall into kind of that cycle of, like, a lot of work and a lot of hanging out with friends, and you kind of leave out the other parts of your life, because college is for, like, all of that. Like, that's the point of going, is, like, you're going there, you're staying on campus with a ton of people, and doing, like, you're there to study, you're there to get your degree, or multiple degrees, if you're like me and getting a double major. What's your major? What's that? I'm trying to remember what that's from. I don't know. Anyway, back to my original point. Yeah, I mean, the whole reason you're in college is to kind of experience life and figure out this work-life balance, and figure out when you're gonna make food. That's also really important. I ended up eating so many tortillas with sriracha sauce on them because I just didn't have time to, like, make a proper snack or make a proper lunch. So keeping those things in mind as well, and not feeling like it's the end of the world if you have to cram studying before a test, you procrastinated on something. Like, that's what's gonna happen. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to study 2 hours every single day. You don't have to do all of that, like, aesthetic TikTok, Instagram stuff. And will I be posting reels like that, saying that I'm studying 2 hours a day? Yes, I will, because that's my job. But I'm not claiming to do that every day. I think an aesthetic video being like, here's my day in the life, then I studied for 2 hours, then I worked out, and then I went and hung out with my friends, and then I fit everything into one day. That can be realistic. And I think those are really fun videos to watch. I love watching a good aesthetic reel or TikTok or whatever. But don't see those and think that's what people are doing every single day at college, because I can tell you 100% that that is not true. As somebody that is very committed to their studies, that has gotten straight A's their entire life, that, I love learning. I'm super, super committed to getting my degrees and to being educated. I also procrastinate on stuff. Like, I'm an overachiever, I'm a perfectionist, and I still don't finish my work on time sometimes. And that's totally fine. as long as you're not, like, skipping every single class, letting your GPA fall super low, and even then, you can recover from that, but obviously, don't try and let that happen, like, attempt to keep a nice balance. I think, now that I said in the beginning that I don't say as much anymore, I feel like I'm saying it more because I, like, acknowledged it. But anyway, I think, no matter how dedicated you are and how committed you are to it, like, everybody has needs that are beyond studying and getting a degree, and that is social, that is physical, that is, like, genuinely, like, taking the time to hang out with people to recharge your work battery, or going on a run to recharge your social battery and your work battery. I think it's just so important to remember that you need to balance those things, that it's never going to be exactly like, I don't even know what a good split, but like 25-25, like, it's never going to be an exact split. But you should also remember that it's easier when you do try and balance it a little bit. It'll be easier for you mentally, it'll be easier for you physically, you'll feel better, you'll perform better if you are balancing your life a little more proactively and not just kind of letting it get the best of you. My nails look so ratchet right now. Good God. That's horrible. I need to fix that, but I don't want to. I like picking at my nails. I feel like a freak. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with getting ready to go back to college. Going into my sophomore year, I'm kind of crazy that I'm already done with freshman year and that I've been done for like 4 months. Like, I'm already gonna start sophomore year, and then when I'm done with sophomore year, I'll be halfway through college. So that's a little scary. But, we'll see. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm really excited for sophomore year. I feel, freshman year is so scary because you're, like, trying to find your friends, you're trying to find your rhythm, trying to figure out, if college is actually right for you, if, you're, like, what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be balancing your time. Are you going to be partying? Are you going to be going to games? Are you going to just be hanging out with your close friends? You kind of figure out who you are, and I feel like freshman year was a lot of that, and I think throughout college there will be a lot of that, but I think the more you get into it, the more you kind of know what you're getting yourself into, and it's a lot less scary when you kind of know what midterms and finals look like, and you're not just wondering, like, oh, is a midterm gonna make or break my entire college career? Like, it's not, most of the time. I don't know why I'm talking with such a big vocal fry today. Sorry about that. Anyway, I hope that was maybe some helpful advice. Maybe kind of learn something from that, or feel like you could relate to it a little bit. Anyway, on to the next topic, which actually also has to do with college, is deciding to stay in your hometown. It's technically not my hometown, but staying where you lived for college versus moving away. I just kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit. Okay, so staying in your hometown for college. So I obviously decided to stay very close to home when I went to college, and I did this for multiple reasons. So my biggest reason actually was because I found a really great barn that I ride at, and I keep my horse there, obviously, and I wasn't gonna move without my horse. So if I was gonna go to a different college, I would have to bring him with me, and that's a lot of work to find a new barn, all of that sort of stuff. And I also felt like he is the happiest he's ever been at this barn. I really love it. I think the training is amazing. The care is amazing, and, he has all his friends there now, and I have all my friends there, and it just wasn't worth it to me to uproot him and myself to go to a new barn, to go to a different college, when I wasn't super interested in going out of state. I've never been very interested. It was either going to be here or it was going to be Sweden. Like, there was no in between. And I don't really want to go to a different state. You know, I didn't want to go to California. I didn't want to go to New York. I didn't want to do any of that. Didn't think it was worth it. I didn't think, you know, I lived in California for the beginning of my life. And all the states are great. I just, like, I don't know. I understand if people want to move. I totally get that. But I think I got really lucky in where I live, and that it's kind of the perfect place for me as of right now. And I think a lot of people put a lot of pressure on going out of state for college, and they think that you need to do it, and they think that that's part of, you know, growing up, and you're leaving home, and you're going like 10 hours away from your house, and, you know, you can't actually get home, you can't see your parents, and like blah 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 blah. And I don't know, I'm here to say that I don't think that's really true. I think I've been able to grow independently of my parents. I've always been pretty independent though, so I feel like it kind of depends on the person. I know for some people, like, it didn't go super great for their first year of college. They didn't really like it. They liked where they lived, but they didn't like college itself. And I think it's really just up to the person. I don't think you should feel pressured to leave the state just because that's what everybody else is doing. And I know that's kind of how oh my god, my voice sounds insane. I know that's kind of how I felt, is that I felt, I was like, oh, everybody's leaving and I'm kind of staying here. Like, is that a bad thing? Like, am I not, you know, taking that leap, taking that chance? And I think no matter what, I think you're allowed to do whatever you want. If you want to stay in state, you stay in state. Tuition's obviously much better for in-state students. It's a lot easier. But also, like, if you're well-traveled, who cares if you don't leave? And also, like, even if you're not well-traveled, who cares if you don't leave? Like, if you live somewhere that you know is the right place for you, stay there. If, you know, you have external factors that make it that you really want to stay where you are, I think that's totally a good reason to stay. I mean, the only reason I stayed here is because it was going to be too much of a hassle to try and figure out how to fly my horse to Sweden. And, like, not that I'm still not debating it, because I'm thinking maybe going out of state for my master's or my PhD, because I have my citizenship in Sweden, so I'd get it for free. But I just think, like, yeah, people put so much, like, not even just pressure, but people are so almost, like, snotty about it if you don't leave, for college, or, like, you at least don't go to, like, at least, like, an hour away, or you don't go, you know, do all that sort of crap. And I just think, like, for one, like, who cares what other people are doing with their lives? Like, calm down. Does not matter. And for two, it's, like, you never know why somebody's doing what they're doing, I guess. And, I mean, I actually know some people that went to my high school that also are going to Lewis and Clark with me. And I think, like, as long as you're going to a school that makes you happy and you're still learning to be independent, you're still, like, even if you live at home, like, I know people that live at home and they're still learning to be independent, like, they literally just don't want to have to rent an apartment for $1 million, and that totally makes sense. And also, I feel like in America, it's so, like, once you're 18, you need to leave, versus what I've kind of found is, like, in Europe and Sweden, you normally live with your family, or you're much closer with your family in general throughout your entire life, but also you live with your family until, like, your early to mid-20s, because it's just, like, kind of what's the point of, leaving? You know, like, you get to stay with your family, which is great. You can still learn to be independent because you're still going to college. You don't have to pay a crazy amount of rent. I mean, like, I live on campus, so I do have to pay, obviously, to have a dorm room. But I think it's just, like, there's this pressure of, like, oh, don't go back to live with your parents, don't go back to do this and this and this. And I think that's just so weird. Because I think it's really just up to the person. Like, if you're gonna become independent, it's not gonna matter if you're at college or if you're at home. Like, you're gonna learn that either way, I think. And obviously, like, nature versus nurture, all of that stuff, and, like, are your surroundings gonna affect it? Yes. I mean, living with your parents, you're going to still learn to depend on them. However, I still feel like you start at least moving towards your own independence, and I think it's fine to kind of get that help you need going into it. But anyway, that was kind of a different side tangent. Mostly, I'm focusing on, like, staying in state. But, you know, like, I don't live with my parents, during the year, and I know a lot of people it's obviously still go home for the summer to stay with their parents, and I feel like it's not very different. Like, I didn't visit my parents very often during the school year, so I feel like there's not a huge difference. And also, like, literally, who cares? Literally, who cares? If you get a little extra help from your parents, like, if you get to stay with them so you don't have to pay rent, or if you know, I don't know. I just feel like it's such an interesting thing to feel like you have to sever yourself from your family to become independent when that's not true. And I feel like this is making me sound like, oh my gosh, I love my mom and dad so much and I stay next to them all the time. And it's just like, no, that's not. Like, it does really sound like I can't ever let go of my family because I love them. Which is true, I do love them. But with that being said, all of the stuff that I'm saying is not to be like, oh, you should, like, hold your parents' hand or they should hold your hand through everything you do. I'm just saying that you can still be near them and not be dependent on them, if that makes sense. I don't know. I hope what I'm saying makes any sort of sense, because that's kind of what I'm trying to get at, is, like, it's not a bad thing if you stay in your hometown, if you stay near your parents. Like, I don't think you continue to be dependent on them. I don't think, you know, you end up sitting there like a 12-year-old expecting them to do everything for you, because, like, obviously I do all my own stuff. I travel solo. Like, it's not like I'm calling them up every 2 seconds to be like, guys, I need help right now. Like, that's not what's happening. But I think, yeah, there's a lot of pressure to leave and to become independent immediately. Or, like, forceful independence in a sense of, like, you know, you're gone and now you have to figure it out all on your own. And, I mean, I think part of becoming an adult is, like, having help from the adults surrounding you, whether it's your parents or people you know or teachers or anything like that. I think that's a helpful part of becoming an adult, is having people to kind of guide you when you need it. But yeah, I feel like I kind of started focusing on the parent side of that, which I don't know kind of how I got on that tangent. But yeah, I think it's fine. I think people they care so much about what other people are doing, which is honestly the biggest issue with all of this, is just, like, it doesn't matter what other people think. If you want to stay, if you want to go, should I stay or should I go? I think it shouldn't matter. I think people shouldn't care about what you're doing with your life. And I think if you have your reasons for staying, you have your reasons for staying. I wanted to stay for my horse. Because horse riding is such a big part of my life and so helpful to my mental health, and I would not be here today if I didn't have my horse, and have my barn and all of that. So, yeah, I feel like that's kind of my point on that, is, like, who cares? Do what you want. Helpful advice for me is, who cares? Do whatever the hell you want to do. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of that. Yeah, do what you want to do. Live your life. and have fun. Okay, my camera's about to die, so I'm gonna wrap this up real quick. But thank you guys for watching. I hope some of that was somewhat helpful, and maybe it helped you decide on something. Maybe you got a little advice that you needed. And if you didn't, I'm sorry. I hope you just liked listening to me talk. For whatever reason that you watched this, thank you for watching. If it was in the background or if you were actually listening intently, I appreciate it. Have a good morning, day, night, mid-afternoon, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 1 a.m., witching hour, whatever time it is. Hope you're having a good time. I can't speak. Anyway, do something that you love and go enjoy your life. But mostly, make sure you do something that you love today. Bye!